and it will help to supplement what we are doing here in the city of Houston. I think we've made tremendous progress. I want to thank Chief Fenner with HPD, Chief Hatcher is here. I want to thank Doug Griffin, President of the Houston Police Officers Union. And then, of course, I want to thank these community Bishop Dixon, President of the NAACP, Justin Robinson, President and CEO of the Houston chapter of Urban League, Linda LaVar, who is a board president of the National Alliance of Mental Illness, not the greater Houston area, and then Larry Payne, who chairs the Mayor's Task Force on Police Reform, Christopher Gorford, who is the Deputy Inspector General that came out of the task force reforms as well. So I want to thank all of these leaders. Senator Cornyn, this act that has been passed with your name on it, that you have get through the Senate and then to the House side, will be a tremendous benefit to the city. And so I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor of the city, for just that. We've been talking about de-escalation. Let me tell you, there are so many dynamics on the streets, so many dynamics. The law enforcement is having to encounter each and every day, 24/7. And quite frankly, from a historical point of view, we've asked law enforcement to do everything. Well, now we're trying to de-escalate, but in de-escalating, we have come up with best practices on how to deal with people when they're facing mental health, mental behavioral health issues, when they're in crisis, when it deals with substance abuse, homelessness, domestic violence and abuse. And so we are attempting to do that, and this, the Law Enforcement De-Escalation Training Act, I think will help us out quite a bit in doing that. And then the health and wellness of our police officers. That's critically important. I don't want to lose out on that piece. So we talk about training, but the health and wellness, because many of the same issues that people are dealing with in our community, law enforcement is dealing with it as well. And sometimes we act as if law enforcement officers are not a part of the community, but they are subject to the same dynamics that we face every day. So it has to be a holistic, inclusive approach. And Senator, this bill, this act that's now into law will help us out quite a bit. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for never forgetting about the people in the city of Houston. And it's my privilege now to bring to the podium the Honorable Senator John Cornyn, who hails from the state of Texas.
Well, Mayor, I don't currently live in Houston.
That's all right, you can move.
But I was born there. and I'm particularly proud of Houston and under your leadership and the chiefs and everybody here who has been involved in trying to find ways to demonstrate our respect for law enforcement and our respect for the communities that they serve. And as I said a moment ago, out of the tragic death of George Floyd, there was a lot of despair. People wondered, where do we go from here? Well, we can't change what happened there, but what we can change, and what it has changed, is the work that Houston's done under the Mayor's Task Force, the work the mental health community's done, the chief, the professionals of law enforcement here at the Houston Police Department and elsewhere, to try to come up with the best practices that we can possibly train our law enforcement officials to protect themselves in what can be a very dangerous job, but also protect the community and individuals in particular who are undergoing mental health crisis. So not every community, not every city has the resources that Houston has or the enlightened leadership to provide these resources to the law enforcement officials. But I was particularly encouraged to hear that Houston is offering this to other law enforcement agencies who don't have perhaps that expertise or that capability to help them learn those best practices for the protection of the officers and the communities they serve. So we're glad that in a very polarized political environment, we're actually able to make some progress, and certainly this De-Escalation Training Act will supplement the good work being done here at the local level and hopefully, in the end, save lives and get people the help they need in order to get better and live a more productive life. And at the same time, demonstrate that the men and women in blue who keep our community safe get the kind of support and respect that they deserve for the benefit of the entire community. So you're going to answer some questions?
Yes.
I'd be glad to take a question or two, and certainly the mayor, we have some other great experts here who can step up and answer questions.
This is for the senator and the mayor. One, how do you anticipate this $124 million being spent in terms of actual use? And mayor, should Houston get any of this money, how would you deploy those funds?
Well, we know resources are always an issue when it comes to government and services, and so much what this $124 million will do is to prioritize this funding. The federal government already provides substantial amounts of funds to local law enforcement, but here, just like we did a few years ago after the tragic shooting in Columbine, where law enforcement had to learn a new technique to deal with active shooters, that sort of training has gone on to save lives and supplement what can be done at the local level. But again, all this is woven together, what happens at the local, state, and the federal level. But certainly this is additional resources that we hope will save lives and help people get the assistance that they need and protect our law enforcement officials.
What I would simply add is that we've taken great strides to increase, to provide added funding for our crisis intervention response teams and our mobile crisis response teams. But this is a city, this is a large city, 640 square miles, and things are happening throughout the city, sometimes at the same time. Any additional dollars that can help us to increase the number of support, increase the number of CERT teams and mobile teams, especially for people in crisis, will help out quite a bit. Any additional dollars that we can use on domestic violence will help out quite a bit. So those are grant opportunities that we hope that we can obtain and infuse in our existing operations to expand them.
One question for the chief, if that's okay. This past weekend, there was an incident on Agarita Lane where officers were not able to de-escalate. What do you do in a situation like that to teach and learn from it?
Yeah, look, it's an imperfect world, and our goal here is always the sanctity of life and make sure we do all we can. That's an active investigation, and we always, in officer-involved shootings, we're going to look at it very critically. But I want everybody to know this one thing. 4,300, 4,400 calls a month, over 50,000 involved in CIT. We're not perfect here, and nobody is, but we strive to be the best that we can be. But give me a little opportunity to look into that and let that investigation go forward. But I can tell you, our hearts and the goal of our training is to make sure that we do everything that we can to de-escalate. Now, we all know sometimes it just don't end well, and that's tragic. But who's to blame? Who knows right now? But we're going to continue to move forward and be the best agency that we can be. But you're going to have, out of 1.2, 1.3 million calls of service, everything's not going to go perfect. But we try to be the best that we can be. And this is going to help the training, the funding, and hopefully we get some, and we'll continue to train other agencies as well. So, thank you.
Let me just add that in situations like that or similar situations, we also you need the resources where, in many cases, where you can divert those calls, and if not divert, send additional folk who can be helpful with people in crisis. That's specifically what I was referring to about additional resources. So, because police are going to get those calls. Families in crisis, who are they going to call? You know, they're going to call police. But at the same time, as we're getting these type of calls, when people are in crisis, not only do we want to send police, but we also want to send people who are more skilled that can help to de-escalate those situations. And why? For two reasons. You don't want the person who's in crisis to be adversely impacted. And at the same time, you don't want our police officers, like in this case, to be injured or fatally killed. So whatever we can do to de-escalate, to make sure that we are sending the right resources depending on what that crisis is, the better it is for law enforcement and the better it is for people in crisis and the family that happens to be in crisis that's reaching out for help. So we need to be in a much better position to do a quick diagnostic assessment and to make sure that as police is responding, we're also sending additional resources out there as well. So that's where we're trying. That's where we're trying to go.
And it's important that we look at all the aspects and everything that led up to that incident, the original cause.